hello and welcome once again to the For the Fans podcast. I'm Justin Melillo, that's Kevin McAdams. We're going to talk some Roval action tonight. What's going on, Kevin?
Hey, had my sixth consecutive day off because we were going to go to the Roval, but we didn't
Sad.
because some of us couldn't get our time off right. So I just stayed home, relaxed, watched a little bit of the weekend racing, and now enjoyed some today. We did some iRacing, and then when we're done with this, I'm going to watch the guys try to make their way into the Pro Series with Road to Pro. So been a iRacing filled day. They have Dover going on right now for the AMB car, and it's actually not that bad. And then they have the trucks at Iowa. So I've been doing that all day. It's been wild for the Nationals. If you guys any of you guys do iRacing, the Nationals are at Daytona this week. It's absolutely insane. So I give 100% recommendation to that if you don't care about your safety rating or I rating. What are you up to, Justin?
Today's my day off, as Tuesdays normally are, so it's supposed to be a relaxing day for me. I didn't really have too much of a relaxing day. I needed to get my oil changed today, and I went to Firestone, which is right up the road from me. Normally, they do it in about less than an hour, which is no problem, so it ended up being hectic because my brother had come home for the weekend and he had a doctor's appointment or something, and so I would normally get dropped off. I'd drive my car up to the Firestone. I'd get dropped off, and then I'd bring my car home later. But because I didn't have a ride because my brother was at the doctor's and my mom had to go with him, I ended up walking to IHOP across the street. Got the IHOP with my sister. We walked back to Firestone. They hadn't even touched my car. I was there for about 3.5 hours today. It was not very fun. I slept, though, which was needed because I did work this morning at my other job. So I didn't really have a lot, you know. I had a lot that I wanted to get done today because I needed to pack because I'm going to Dover this weekend. I'm going to Dega the next weekend. I'm not coming home in between. So I wanted to pack while I was, I had all this free time today, and my free time was just shot. I didn't get back home till like 4 o'clock, and I started working on getting the podcast ready. I just finished up dinner as well. So I wanted to get this going at 8. You wanted to get this going at 8, and we're a little bit late. So my day was not as iRacing or fun filled as yours was, unfortunately, for me, but that's the way it is sometimes. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. As we mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Roval. We're going to be talking about what went down in both the Cup Series and the Xfinity Series. We're also going to be talking a little bit about some Truck Series news. We're going to preview the iRacing finale that's coming up next week, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about NASCAR's new 2020 rules package that dropped today. So that's what we got going on. You ready to hit this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to start off with is obviously the two big stories from Sunday. Chase Elliott doing probably, he even said, like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Rex it in the lead, and he had easily the best car, if not like the best car driver combo, because he has been just a maniac at these road courses. He's very reminiscent of Jeff Gordon in that sense. Like, he is just killing it at these road courses. Comes back and wins, and lo and behold, he actually has some personality, and he actually does a pretty cool celebration, jumps out of the car while it's going in reverse, jumps off of it, and the car just basically backs into the pit wall. And then, of course, finishing second, you had Alex Bowman, who he absolutely needed to finish where he finished because, I mean, obviously Newman had his problems, but if he did not get that kind of finish, we don't have Bowman in the playoffs. We have Newman in the playoffs, and it was paramount for him to finish in that second spot. And of course, along with Bowman, You have him and Bubba Wallace getting into it during the race. You have, at least according to Bowman, Wallace flipping him off as he's trying to pass him. Bowman retaliates, puts him in the fence outside the first chicane. And then, of course, and I think you're about to play it now, uh, you've got Bubba Wallace, which I think is okay. I don't see the issue. He's gets water thrown in his face. I don't know how you feel about it, Justin, but I have absolutely no problem with it. But that's pretty much the two big stories that we have for Cup.
Yeah, that was some of the news that came out of Charlotte this past weekend. Yeah, you know what? Chase Elliott gained a lot of points in my book for the way that he handled the situation. I played it earlier. I'll go back to it. Uh, he missed the corner like last year. Brad Keselowski missed the corner. Keselowski took out a bunch of other cars with him. This time it was just Elliott taking himself out, and you would have thought the amount of impact that he had here, just would have been absolutely critical, damage that would have just taken him completely out of the race. But he was able to fight back from that. He clearly had a fast car, and the damage clearly didn't affect him enough to not let him be victorious on Sunday. The celebration, that is 100% the one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Um, he goes to the spot where he celebrated. I don't know if I can find it here, but he goes to the spot where he wrecked and he celebrates. Gets up on the car. I have the picture here, which is a really good picture that was taken. He's standing up on the window. The car is rolling backwards. He jumps off. The car just keeps rolling backwards. He doesn't care. He just you've said in the past that he hasn't had a lot of personality, and that's one of your turnoffs for him, and I kind of tend to agree with that. That it is kind of weird how he is the most popular driver.
His
And
fans suck, but that's another thing.
you know what it is? A lot of them come from Junior Nation. They're trying to find drivers to latch onto, and some of them went Chase, some of them went Bowman, some of them have gone, maybe not as much, but some of them have gone Byron. But mostly it's Jeff Gordon fans that have gone Byron because he's in the 24 car.
Damn right.
So, but yeah, the celebration was absolutely fantastic by Elliott. The drive was incredible by him. The drive by his teammate was also incredible. Considering how much drama that Bowman had gone through all afternoon, he was just at lap one. He's wrecking into the new chicane. Here I got it up on the screen. Here he just absolutely turns Bubba Wallace. Bubba had been flipping him off like he said. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's like having thin skin or what, because drivers flip each other off all the time. There I tend to think that there must have been some type of bad blood between them before this, but I can't seem to figure out when it was. But this happened, and then after the race, we get the splash to the face of the Powerade, not Gatorade, Powerade. Bubba's a Coca-Cola driver, so Powerade it is. And you know what? I can see both sides of the argument for this one. One, it was harmless. It was completely harmless. It was a little bit of water or liquid in the face after a hot race. He was seeking medical attention. But you could see he was there. He was conscious. It wasn't like he was like down, like clinging on for life. He was just catching his breath. And Bubba comes over there, and Bubba's probably looking to knock him out because he got turned where he did. Bubba's probably coming over there to like put a fist in his face, not liquid in his face. Poor Jeff Gordon, he gets sprayed with it. The only thing I can say is that it kind of is a little classless, because I mean, you wouldn't see like on the football field, like if somebody knock down another player. Usually, you don't see another player from the other team walk over there with their water bottle and just like spray it on them while they're getting medical attention or anything like that. Um, but where NASCAR is like not like other sports, so it happened. I can't believe people are still talking about it today because I mean, I listened to Moody's show the first 15 minutes and they were arguing about it where the one producer was like, I don't really have a problem with it. And Moody's over there, sitting over there, and he's like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, that was so classless. Like, so.
Eh, I mean, it if my thing is like obviously there's a medic there, but it's not like it was not like you said, it was not something that was so dire that like he had like he if it was not a big deal. Like the people that I saw all over Twitter, like, oh, I've lost all respect for Bubba. I'm like, you didn't have much if you lost respect for something that minor.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, these guys are in the car. They're in there for 3.5 hours. It's 95 degrees outside. I mean, you have all these guys, like every single guy was just sweltering in those cars. It was bad, and everyone's experiencing the heat. So with Bubba, I'm thinking, well, he's super frustrated. He's raced this whole race. He's been wrecked. He's been tossed around, and the one thing he wants to do is give some kind of payback to Bowman. And he sees him sitting on the ground. It's like, okay, he's obviously just sitting here to play chicken because he doesn't want to actually like address the situation. So what's the only thing I can do? Well, let me throw some water in his face or throw some Powerade in his face. So I mean, I 100% understand Bubba's frustration. I don't see any issue with it. People want personalities in NASCAR, and then we get them, and then they completely turn around and go the other direction. So I NASCAR fans are so fickle. It's ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people are in support of Bubba. A lot of people are in support of Bowman. I'm kind of in the middle because I like both guys. I like Bowman as a driver. I like Bubba Wallace as a driver. They're both very talented. Obviously, Bowman's in a little bit better equipment, so that helps his case. But I have no problem with it at all. Not one bit.
The only thing I can really take away from it is that the sanctioning body doesn't seem to agree that it was really nothing. They're gonna talk with Bubba throughout the
They're
week,
not penalizing him. I just saw that they're not going to penalize him.
which is that's the right thing to do. But clearly they don't want that happening at their events, which is it's whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, this happened. Elliott won. Newman just the the shit that Newman went through the entire day. He ended up having an issue with Daniel Suarez apparently post race. Newman was
He
another
wrecked
one
him.
who was sitting against his car. His daughter was like dumping water on his head, and Newman was just he was doing everything that he could to make the next round. Um, he was in the position too, even with Bowman being in the second place. Newman was in, I want to say in like 10th or 11th place, which would have been enough for him. And he's got Almirola right on his back end, and he overdoes it. He overcooks it into the corner, cuts the part of the chicane, and of course he's got to serve a penalty for it. He doesn't do the stop and go, so uh, they have him come down on the last lap and serve a pass through penalty, which I don't even know if he did or not. But either way, I mean he ended up last on the lead lap or whatever, and he's been eliminated. Kurt Busch, he's been eliminated. Eric Jones is gone, and Eric Almirola also.
Yeah.
So
I from what I've gathered, Newman was trying to serve the penalty and absolutely just put Suarez in the fence. So that's why Suarez and Newman got into it. And then Newman did not, at the end of the day, serve the penalty. So they gave him a 30-second penalty, which at the end of the day just put him at the back of the line on the lead lap. So you hate it for Newman. I don't think it's going to really change the fact that he Probably wasn't going to make the round of 8 anyway, but it would have been a good story to see him scratch and claw his way through the playoffs like he did to get into the playoffs and then almost make it his way into the round of 12. So you hate to see that story end on this note. But I think the 12 that we have going into the next three races is a good one. I don't think we pulled the points, but I'm sure we can find it. But I'm looking forward, not really to Dover. Dover sucks. Dover's going to be one of the worst races of the playoffs. I really wish they would get rid of this track. It's so bad. Um, at least make the car better. Jesus Christ. But we got Talladega to look forward to. Talladega is going to be great if they can actually, they don't have to worry about team orders or manufacturer orders. You got, uh, what was it, Kansas after? I always forget what's after Talladega. I believe it is Kansas. But I think this is going to be a good three races in terms of who's got what. I think once again we'll see the same guys up front, but it should be good. Yeah, it is going to be Kansas. Kansas is the third race, so I'm looking forward to it for sure. I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the playoffs, of course, and then I I don't know what else I can say about this Roval race other than that it was 100% lived up to the expectations that it did from last year, because I don't know how you could ever ask for another race like this. It was so entertaining.
God, why didn't we go?
I don't know, man. I really don't. It would have been fun, but there's always next year. Because I mean, the fact that this is probably a top three, top five race of the year is pretty. That's a good thing because I know when they took the fall race away from the actual just overall speedway and they introduced this Roval, a lot of people were concerned that it wasn't going to be that good, and it has 100% lived up to the hype. And I don't think they should try to capture this light in a bottle everywhere. I don't think they should run a Vegas Roval, a Kansas Roval. I don't think they should remove one of the plate races at Daytona. I think that this is a very cool special thing that they should reserve for just Charlotte because it makes it special and it's a cool race and I hope one year we get to go. I think that'd be really cool.
I agree. I do have the points up on the screen now. The left side is the playoff points. That's the one we really care about. Kyle Busch did not really have that great of a first round, but regardless, he is still the top seed when it comes to the standings reset, and he'll be leading the field into the round in 12. He's got a 5 point lead over Martin Truex Jr., then his other teammate Denny Hamlin. He's 16 points back, and so on and so forth. Right now, the four guys out are Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, and Clint Boyer. So they'll have some work to do. Kyle Larson's the bubble man, and he's only got it's only 6 points in between him and Boyer. So if things are as they have been, it could be a race between those five for the final spot. Or if anybody else has any bad luck, it could be, they could be falling out. One of the links that you sent me, speaking of Kyle Busch, has to do with Kyle Busch's parking at the Roval. I saw a video, I want to say it was Brad Perez, just posted a video on social media, and it was Kyle Busch just driving backwards on pit road and into the garage during the red flag that happened with like 7 laps to go. And it's like, what is he doing? Like, he's out there, he's got a car that's able to run. Is he just like quitting? Is he just like giving up? Like, what is going on? You come to find later on that he had a broken sway bar in the front, and it was because of a flat tire that he gotten earlier in the race and damage that he gotten. So there really was no reason for him to continue being out there, and he had just taken that opportunity to pull the car behind the wall. So it wasn't like he was just quitting on the event. It was just him, pulling in. He probably would have, instead of going around a lap and pulling in, he decided to do it, during the red flag while he had the opportunity. So, yeah, that's the tweet right there. So, I mean, Fans are going to say what they're going to say about Kyle Busch just because they don't like him. But I mean, I personally don't have an issue with it at all. It just seemed like one of those things, and people are going to look at it whatever way they look at it.
I mean, my biggest thing is obviously, yeah, you're right. Like people that are against Kyle are always quitting. Um, well, at the end of the day, the way this format is, if you have enough points, like you can do that. Like he had nothing to race for at that point. He was 3 laps down. Car was broken. Why not just not risk injury, or because if you're driving a broken car, anything could snap and break. And I mean, they're not going terribly fast here. I mean, they're doing about 160 into the final chicane before the finish line. But I mean, you don't want to risk anything if the car just decides to break and just slam into the outside wall. I mean, what's the point if there's nothing to gain? I mean, gaining points at that point didn't matter. He was locked in. He was not going to win the race being 3 laps down. I I don't think people understand like they have to like these guys obviously like to race, but there is definitely a point where, well, what's the point? Like, what am I out here for? I mean, well, you're supposed to race for your sponsors. It's like, well, okay, well, he raced for his sponsor the whole race, and then he parked it with what 7 laps to go, and it's not
Right.
like he has a bad relationship with Mars. That Mars brand and M&Ms, they love him. They're not going anywhere. That dude can wreck as many people as he wants, throw as many tantrums as he throws, and they will stay with him 100%. So I don't see any kind of point to make as far as, oh, well, he shouldn't have done it because this. Like, give me a real reason. Well, you can't because Gibbs told him to park it. He had nothing to race for.
Yeah, it wasn't
So,
just like Kyle Busch decided that Kyle Busch was done. He had talked with his crew chief. He had talked with his owner. And looking at the standings here, he parked being 3 laps down already. He only lost one more spot. He lost a spot to Garrett Smithley, and that's I think they got the same amount of points as it was anyway. 36th and 37th get the same amount of points as it is. So it wasn't like Kyle Busch had anything to gain at all unless there was a giant pileup and like 20 cars got, taken out with 4 laps to go and he passed them being 3 laps down. That was really the only thing that he had to look forward to possibly happening, and it really wasn't worth it because you know what, with a broken car that might have been him causing it. So I think that Kyle Busch, he gets a lot of hate and he brings a lot of it on himself in the way that he acts and the way that he is sometimes. But at the end of the day, he's another competitor out there. He's still leading the championship points. He still has the best chance to move on to the next round, uh, going into Dover and into Talladega and to Kansas. I'm sure that he'll be competitive at all those races, and even if he's not, he's still got that cushion to fall back on.
yeah, I think it's a non-story that just got blown out of proportion. To be honest, it's. I think he. I don't know. I don't have an issue with it.
So we'll move to the Xfinity Series now, and going with our redemption theme, Allmendinger gets redemption. He wins a wild one. He wins the Xfinity Series race at Charlotte the day before. And the reason I say Allmendinger gets redemption is because that everybody was asking, or everybody was wondering, okay, what's the 10 car going to fail in post race inspection this time? Because he failed at Daytona with the engine issue, and he failed at Watkins Glen, and both of those races were top three finishes. So now he's got a winning car. You got to think, oh man, did his team give him another cheated up car, or did they have something else wrong with it? But everything was fine. Everybody passed inspection. Allmendinger was declared the winner. It is redemption for him. And it's great to see him and Colleague Racing find success. Colleague Racing's second ever victory. So Um, it I liked the Xfinity Series race because you had a lot of stuff going on in that one too. There was a little bit of an issue between Christopher Bell and Chase Briscoe at one point. Um, and it was another good race in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you had also Christopher Bell. I still haven't gotten the full story on it, but I know that Christopher Bell just decided to dump Will Rogers on the last lap. I don't know why he would do, why it matters at that point. The race is pretty much over. I, I'm still trying to figure that one out. But I mean, there were a lot of guys that were running up front that we did not normally see. Jeremy Clemens was in the top 10 for a little while. He's always good at these road courses. Alex LeBay in the 90. I think he finished in the top 10. You had Will Rogers running up there for a little bit. It was really cool to see, just because I think here more than ever the the actual like talent behind the wheel really mattered. Uh, I don't think Allmendinger had the best car, but he certainly is probably one of the best road racers in the field. Same thing with Cindric. Allgaier is really good. Gregson apparently is somewhat of a wheelman on the road courses because he has placed that car in good spots every single time, and at these road courses. So, got to give credit to him. I normally don't. I normally slap him around in these podcasts. So give credit to him where credit's due. Uh, what's his face? Annette Michael Annette places 15th with a car that pretty much had the front end taped together. Uh, I do feel bad for Briscoe just because he was in such a good spot to win and kind of got out of sorts on, I think it was strategy more than anything, uh, and ended up finishing ninth. So
Well,
uh,
Briscoe ended up ninth because of this incident with Bell. Um, they were racing up there for second spot, and
was it in turn one?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
the initial incident was Christopher Bell had gotten pushed off by Briscoe, um, and Bell had ended up getting a penalty for cutting the course. So I guess Bell didn't like
Oh,
that.
that's right.
Yeah. So
I watched this race live. I'm surprised I don't remember that.
no, this was a big one because it really showed like a side of Christopher Bell that I really hadn't seen before, where he
Another
was
guy
just
that people say they has no personality.
yeah, and another one exactly. He definitely showed that he can get upset, and whether it was intentional or not, I mean, Briscoe ended up around, and they both ended up on the back because of it. So it is what it is at that point. Neither of them got the victory at the end of the day. I don't think either of them would have gotten the victory. Briscoe, maybe, if he would have gotten around Bell and had maybe a couple, I think this happened with like 10 laps to go. I think it could have been possible that Briscoe could have got out there and contended for the victory with AJ Allmendinger, but at the end of the day, they tangled, and it wasn't in the cards for either of them. Um, Looking at the results one more time, um, looking at our big three, as we always like to talk about, Tyler Reddick, I don't know where he came from. He ended up finishing second. He was the best of those. Cole Custer, he kind of had a mediocre day. He finished in eighth. And then Christopher Bell, of course, finishing in 12th after the penalty. Looking at the point standings, they have one more race left before their cutoff, and it is the big three on top. Christopher Bell currently leading, Cole Custer in second, Tyler Reddick in third. Michael Annett currently sitting on the bubble. He had an absolutely miserable race at the Roval. He ended up with damage on lap one and just had to fight every lap. I mean, he didn't fight as hard as Bowman did the next day, but he still fought and ended up with a an okay finish. Oh, he still finished, you know, near his competition, and he's still holding on to that final transfer spot. I'd say that the top five, maybe top six are okay. They're gonna be, they're not really gonna have to worry about too much. when we go to Dover this weekend. Um, Gregson, he might be okay too because he's got a 16-point gap. Uh, but 16 points, you can make that up in the stages. You can get 20 points in a stage and then look out. Um, and that's definitely going to be sweating it. John Hunter Nemechek and Brandon Jones, they're both 11 points out. And then Ryan Sieg and Justin Haley are both in must-win situations, and unfortunately, I don't see them winning at all. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out this weekend at Dover. I really we said it last week that it's very predictable, this series, and I predict that nothing is really going to change here. Maybe if Annette has a bad race, we could see him falling out and then Nemechek or Jones going in. But even if that happens, whoever gets that final spot, I don't foresee them making it to the Final Four anyway.
Right. I think you're right. I think you nailed it on the head as far as, like, if Annette has his problems, it just kind of prolongs either Hunter Nemechek or Brandon Jones getting eliminated later. So I don't think it's much of a difference in my opinion. I hope it's a fun race, just because more dogs barking. But I hope it's good.
Haven't heard of Jarvis in a while.
Oh, he's somewhere.
All right. So, yeah, that was the Roval race at Charlotte for the Xfinity Series. Like I said, Ryan Sieg and Justin Haley, they're in must-win situations. Well, that's because they finished 30th and 31st, and they had issues throughout the day. So, yeah, congratulations to AJ Allmendinger on the victory. Now, I do want to jump over to the Truck Series, and even though the Truck Series hasn't run since, I believe it was Las Vegas, where the cutoff was for the round of 8. Now, we talked about it then. They had a bunch of engine issues with the Ilmor engines, and 2 of the Thor Sport Racing trucks ended up getting eliminated that night. Both teammates Grant Enfinger and Johnny Sauter ended up having issues. So did Matt Crafton, but Matt Crafton was in a better position enough to get enough points to advance. ThorSport actually did something I really wasn't expecting. They put in a request to get reinstated into the playoffs, get their 2 trucks reinstated. NASCAR, of course, declined that, but you got to think back to when Jeff Gordon was added to the chase in God, when was that? 2011? I can't even remember, but Jeff Gordon was added to the chase as the 13th man.
2013?
Was it 2013? I don't even remember.
I think it was 2013.
But, I mean, the stipulation does exist where NASCAR can add people back into the playoffs. And we've seen it done before, but in this instance, NASCAR did decline ThorSport's request. It's interesting because it wasn't really ThorSport Racing's fault that everybody had faulty engines. It just was their luck that they ended up getting affected the most by it. I mean, we were even talking about it that night that the winner, Austin Hill, had engine issues where the engine was like turning on, turning off. They found out, and the quote is here, they investigated and Ilmor cited the cause as the combination of high engine load condition combined with the extreme weather conditions in Las Vegas, and that resulted in some engines suffering severe detonation. Basically, the temps were too hot and the engines were too tuned out, and they were going out because of that. So, ThorSport sent the letter. They said, we feel it's the right thing that we should be added back in, and then eliminate 4 instead of 2 after Phoenix, which that would have been interesting. It really, I
would have liked it.
It would have made it, it would have made it more like the other series where, because the trucks do it a little bit differently. They eliminate 2 each time, so you don't have to be, too far down to not make it. You still got to be up there in the top four or the top six to make it in during the elimination races. But you would have made it another round of eight, and it would have been reset too. It wouldn't have been like anything would have mattered from the first three races. But it didn't happen to be the case, and Infinger and Sauter will, not be racing for a championship regardless.
I mean, I'll address my opinion in a second, but what do you think that that's the right decision?
I think it would have been very controversial if they did allow the Thor Sport trucks to be put back in. And that's kind of why they didn't. Because you saw the backlash that they had gotten for the whole Itchy Arms, Jeff Gordon, Martin Truex Jr., Clint Boyer thing. They really didn't get a lot of positive feedback on that one, even though a lot of Jeff Gordon fans were really happy to see it. NASCAR definitely got a lot of flack from it, and maybe they didn't want to receive the same flack in this situation. I do feel like though it would have been fair if they would have been added back in because it wasn't their issue; it was Ilmore's issue, and Ilmore is the contractor for NASCAR. They're the ones that build the engines for all the teams. This is the direction that NASCAR wants to move, and so essentially they're not forcing these teams to buy these engines, but the way that they cost and the performance that they have, they basically are. So everybody has to have this engine, and a batch of bad engines come out, and two guys get really screwed by it more than everybody else, and they get eliminated. I mean, they had the other two races to go out there and win and lock themselves in, and they didn't. But I feel like it would have been a little bit more fair if they were added back in, and I think it really would have maybe brought a little bit more life back into the truck series because it's kind of been stagnant with all these off weeks. I think it would have brought a little bit more life back into the series. Everybody would have been talking about it like, whoa, they got eliminated, now they're not eliminated, now they can go on and win a championship. Like, what the hell? So that's my take on it. I I'm like I'm on the fence with it. I see why they didn't, but I really would have liked them to have.
It. I think I don't know, man. It's so tough. I think they should have because if we're talking about like they make it a disadvantage to run a factory car or a factory engine, whether it's Chevy or Ford or Toyota, whatever it is, TRD, whatever you want to pick out of those three. They changed the gear. They changed the gears for those specific engines. That way, it's somewhat of a disadvantage, whether it's for fuel or for performance, whatever. So they do change it to make it better for the Ilmore engines to be faster. So I think they should have just basically, all right, sucks that you had this issue. We'll let you back in, but you're not getting any of these points back. You will have to earn your way in from being that far behind. Like if they were, say, 20 points behind sixth, everyone else has their bonus points or whatever, but you guys got to start in the hole. Like instead of you guys having 2,000 points like everyone else plus your playoff points and win points and all that, you guys will start minus 10 or minus 25, whatever you guys were at the conclusion of Vegas behind sixth place. I think that would have been the only way to make it somewhat fair. It also would have been cool to see if they can kind of drive themselves out of that hole and I mean really earn the third or fourth spot, first, second spot, or whatever into Homestead. I think that's the only real way if they did do that, that would be fair for the truck teams who did earn their way in and just did not have any issues.
Yeah, it is what it is. I either way, I don't think I had either of those two going to the championship regardless, but it would have been fun. Um, I know that we're kind of running up on time here because of the road to pro. I I do want to mention that we did have the iRacing, you know, playoff finale, um, to decide the championship for at the Roval last week. Bobby Zelensky, as we had pretty much predicted, went on and won. Absolutely dominated, led every lap. Michael Conti was second best, as we also predicted, and was right there waiting in the wings in case Zelensky did happen to make a mistake or somebody made a mistake into Zelensky. That didn't happen, and Conti, of course, didn't have enough points to advance. And then you had a hell of a battle, one of the greatest battles I've ever seen in online sim racing history, between Blake Reynolds and Garrett Lowe for that final transfer spot. They were just absolutely going at it the entire night. Like, Garrett had the advantage to start off, and Blake was just closing in, closing in, closing in. And then near mid race, they ended up Blake undercut him by one lap on the pits. So then Blake ended up having the advantage, but then he had the disadvantage because he had, Garrett ended up having lesser tires, and Garrett was just closing in, closing in, closing in, and they meet and then it's on. And they're hitting each other, they're missing chicanes, they're diving it in deep. One would make the pass and then the other would cross over. Um, I think I got a video here too. Just one of the greatest battles that I've ever seen. And it was really awesome to watch, and it ended up that Blake ended up the victor in that, and Blake gets to go on to the championship race with Zelensky, Keegan Leahy, and Zach Novak, and they're going to be racing on Thursday, live on NBCSN, racing for that iRacing Peak Championship. What do you think, Kevin?
I I mean, I loved it just because I'm a friend of Blake's, but it was God, what the hell is going on behind me? I love watching it just because I knew that whoever finished ahead in that battle was going to Homestead, and they were racing like they were racing for 40 grand. And people, when Blake threw that block at Indianapolis, why he did something so so reckless. If Casey got around him there, uh, and potentially if he just didn't block and cause enough chaos on that final stretch, he might have finished, instead of finishing second, he might have finished third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and he would have been a few points back, and that would have changed everything. He would have had to finish a lot higher than Garrett, and I think he actually ended up doing that anyway. But it was man, that was if you have not watched that series, it's the closest thing to like equal opportunity. Obviously, they're on different setups, and obviously there's a different skill level between each guy, and teams matter so much as far as who's got the speed. I mean, Zelensky and Keegan Leahy, I think, are the favorites at Homestead, just because Keegan has produced just the craziest long run setups that you can imagine. It's going to be really hard for NASCAR when they broadcast it on NBC, like why he's pulling away. When I thought these guys were all equal, because he has the craziest long run speed out of anybody in that whole entire series. He will pull out 4 or 5 seconds when everyone else is all packed up. So I'm really excited that it's going to be on NBCSN. I'm definitely going to tune in and watch it just because I have someone to root for. But I mean, it's history in the making. We're actually seeing sim racing on live network television for the first time. So I mean, that's really cool. I think it's something that they're looking into doing next year, potentially showing the entire season next year. I think that'd be a really cool thing to see as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Thursday as well. Um, After this and I get everything all uploaded and everything, I'm gonna be packing up my desktop computer. I'm gonna be taking it with me to Dover and to Vegas so that I can properly cover the um the the finale, which is happening on Thursday at 5 p.m. on NBCSN. It's going to be a hell of a race. I really do think it is. I feel like Homestead's going to be the one race out of them all, out of all the races. That's going to be the closest, I think, to what we had seen at Auto Club, where you're just going to see guys on top of each other and a lot of close side by side racing. And I think like all four of these guys are going to bring their best stuff. I think they're all going to have the best thing that they could possibly have. They're all working towards it. It's a lot of money. I do think Keegan will have the advantage, but Keegan didn't win every race this season, and he didn't have the right strategy in a lot of them, and anything can happen. So we'll see what happens. I'm really looking forward to it. Um, i if we got time, I just want to glass over this really quick. Um, NASCAR released a schedule update for their 2020 Cup Series rules package. Some of the things that they covered in here, they talked about some regulations with chassis, where each car number is only allowed a certain number of certified chassis is active. They're only allowed like 10 unique chassis designs. They're limiting the wind tunnel testing. They're limiting track rosters. The maximum number of road crew personnel goes down from 12 to 10. Um, Teams have to. It says teams must compete in a minimum of 8 events with full long block sealed engines and at least 8 events with short block sealed engines, which changed from 3 and 13 from years before. Um, so it really wasn't too much, but I saw this tweet from Matt Weaver, that somebody else just posted, and it really it pretty much sums it all up. That NASCAR is pretty much all in with this direction. He writes. He said they'll either thrive with it or they'll fall with it. Um, those are the only two outcomes. This is going to be the Gen 7. There's no going back. High downforce, low power cars with drivers not lifting is their vision. And I tend to agree with that. Like, NASCAR really is putting their chips in on this, because if they didn't like what they saw this year, they would have had these cup rules that they announced today have maybe a little bit more towards not doing what they did this year, and they didn't. They didn't really change much.
Well, I think also it's a matter of like, well, what's the point in changing all this stuff if we're gonna have a new car? I think the one thing I was a little bit disappointed in not seeing was that they just get rid of the spoiler, at least the big one for the short tracks, because that's where this package actually suffers more than anywhere. Is like places like Bristol. The bracing is still decent there. Richmond, Dover. We're going to Dover this week. Phoenix, or ISM Raceway. The road courses, at least Watkins Glen, seemed like that dirty air was a problem. It's honestly, I still think it's too early to tell, because they may be going in that direction of low horsepower, high downforce. But if they can get a car that can run in traffic well, it's not going to really matter if it has high downforce. I mean, obviously, you want to have a lower downforce number in terms of aero not being as important. But the rumblings I've heard is that it's everyone's going to have a common chassis that you have to buy from a private vendor like Delara, and then I keep hearing that the cars are going to look like their real life counterparts. And I mean, I know that's what they said about the Gen 6, but I just have faith that they're building this car because they want it to be so different. I think if they were really concerned about the cars looking similar to their production models, but they really didn't care about the way the car looked and drove now, that they would have just put a body over it like they did for the COT to the Gen 6. I'm hoping uh, that they're not stupid enough to really go for the high arrow push style package, because that's where this is honestly an issue. I really don't think the wide open is the problem. In my opinion, I mean, if they were going wide open, I don't care, as long as the racing is good, as long as people can pass, as long as the best car can go from 20th to the front. I don't care what they're running. I just want it to be possible to pass. Uh, and I think that's what everyone should hope for, is that we have a car and a package that they can get around each other and there's not a lot of dirty air. Obviously, it's going to always exist, but if they can cut that out as much as they can, like F1's doing in 2021, uh, I'll be okay with it. I think it's way too early to tell what the car is going to be like.
Yeah, I'm cautious about it. I really am. I don't think they. I feel like they're overly satisfied with the product that we had this season, and really we're just looking for, positive opinions and kind of ignored the negative ones. I really did get that vibe a lot this year, and
Oh, I agree.
I hope that whatever they're doing, whatever we end up with in 2021, is the greatest thing that's ever happened in NASCAR. I don't care how fast they're going. I don't care how the cars look. I honestly don't care if we get good racing product out of it. That's all I care about. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yep. I mean, I mean, if they look like boxes out there and they race well, I don't care. I don't care if they look like tuna cans. I don't care if they look like flying saucers. I don't care. As long as they make a car that showcases talent, which is important, I think, for everybody to see who the best driver is, not necessarily who the best car whoever has the best car, who can get out in front and keep people at bay with the dirty air. I don't think people want to see that. I think people want to see good racing, hard racing, the driver matter, and aero and the dirty air meaning as little as possible. I think if they can do that, good. If they go the completely opposite direction, I think they're fucked. I think they're screwed because people are noticing in every other series that they're going that direction. Less downforce, less aero push. They're making sure they're making that an emphasis to work on that. And I think if NASCAR's smart, which they're engineers, there are a lot of engineers working with NASCAR on this. I'm sure they're focusing very very highly on that.
We'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. As always, you can catch our podcast on YouTube, usually the day after, so it'll probably be up at some point tomorrow. I'll get it up during work. You can also catch us on Apple. You can catch us on Spotify. You can catch us on Google Play Music. You got anything else going on for the rest of the week? When are you heading back to work?
Tomorrow, I'm going back tomorrow. Then I think I'm off like Saturday or something, so it's not like I got to work a very long time. I think 3 days, and then I'm back off. So we're getting closer and closer to the hectic season. iPhone launch has come and gone, and it was pretty lackluster.
For
And
you.
it was not bad. It really wasn't. It came and went. We don't have any phones anymore because they sold out. So now we just place orders online and they get shipped to their house. So it's nice. Life is good there. And I think that's about it.
Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna go and pack up and get ready for my week and a half excursion away from my house and at the racetrack, Stover and Dega. Looking forward to it. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Catch us next week. We'll probably be on Monday next week again. Depends on where I'm at, really, because I'm gonna be doing it from a hotel. So thank you everybody, and have a good night.
Goodbye.